Hi guys, and welcome back to another video with your girl Escape with Dev. I am back with part 3 of the why I had to leave Jamaica urgently. So I'm just gonna get straight into it, but before I do, I just want to say thank you guys so much to all my escapers, new escapers, old escapers. I love you all. Thank you guys so much for watching part 1 and 2, and for all your lovely messages, all your motivational messages, your support, all of that. I love it. I appreciate it, and it really does help me to continue telling my journey, because I know that it will help somebody else. I think when I was going through my journey, I wish I had more people to kind of like relate to, but I didn't really have that. So that's the whole reason why I'm sharing my journey with you guys. It is a sensitive thing to talk about, but I'm trusting God through the process of me telling you guys my journey. Also want to say that if you are going through this currently, or if you've been through this, that I completely understand your, how you'll be feeling. There's days that I'm really upbeat and I have a lot of faith and I'm good. And then there's days when I'm literally crying and I'm sad and I'm going into my thoughts like, why is this happening? Why did it happen? Or, just questioning God. And we are humans, we are children of God, and He does understand when we go through our emotions, and He understands all of that. So it's okay to have your days where you do go to God and say, look, why did this happen, or how did this happen? But just know that you will never stay in that deep dark place, that God will lift you out of it. So when I even have my moments when I'm sad and down, I don't stay in those dark places. I come back out and I'm like, you know what, no, that's the enemy. Like, rebuke it, cancel it. That's the enemy trying to get me to act out of my character, be someone that I'm not, and to be mad and angry when actually I have nothing to be angry about. I'm super blessed and super highly favored. So are you. You're super blessed and you're highly favored, and whatever you go through, it's never in vain. There's always a purpose behind it. So remember that you are blessed and highly favored. Okay, so let's get straight into part 3. So I left you guys off at part 2, where I said that, a lot of things happened. I found out that I was having twins. I found out that I was having a boy and a girl, DeAndre Dior. The whole Portland person, he wasn't so much active in the situation. My mum was back and forth from Jamaica, and I had quite a few scans, and you guys already know that I was losing my baby girl Dior. I was losing her, and yeah. So like I told you guys, I started to bleed. So after my scan, I started to bleed, and I went to accident emergency. No, well, didn't go to A&E, sorry. I went to the delivery suite, because when you're pregnant and you're like, after a certain amount of weeks, you no longer go to like the regular A&E. You have to go to the delivery suite, which is obviously primarily for those women that are pregnant. So I went to the delivery suite, and I was waiting, because some days you have it where it's very busy and some days it's quite quiet. So I was waiting. They did my vital checks. They check like your blood pressure, like all of that, your urine sample, and then I was called in. And so when I was called in, because I was bleeding and they knew that my baby was at a very high risk of passing away, they immediately decided to obviously do like a little check the heartbeat to see if the heartbeat was still present. So I laid in the bed and I was really nervous, guys. I was really nervous, because obviously now I'm prepared that this is what's happening to me. Like, I'm prepared that I'm not gonna hear a heartbeat, and I don't know how I'm gonna. Okay, they called me and I was super numb. Like, I didn't know how to feel. I just was mentally prepared to hear the worst, basically. I was with my mom at the time as well, but I was mentally prepared. I think we were both just ready to hear, we were ready for it, because we've been hearing it for so long, and we were just ready to hear that baby girl had gone. Obviously, that's not something we wanted to hear, but especially for me, like, I had to get myself in that mental place, because if I didn't, I don't think I would be sane right now, So I think for me, whenever like something is happening, I try to think the worst before I think the positive. Like, I know that may not be right, but I never like to think, oh yeah, this is gonna happen, or even though I do preach to have faith, and you do, and I think that there was a part of me that was having faith, and there was a part of me that was definitely trusting God, and there was a part of me that knew that God had me in this journey, but I never like to put myself in a mental place where like, yeah, things are great, because disappointment can really lead to serious situations with your mental health. So I definitely tried to just be, I was just numb. Like, I was immune to everything. I was just nonchalant. I was like, okay, just tell me what it is. And I remember as well, when I had a bit of therapy, I remember telling the therapist that I was numb throughout this whole journey. I'm numb. I can't cry, and if I do cry, it's very on occasions. But like, I'm so numb. Like, I don't know what's happening right now. Like, this is not me. Like, I feel like I'm having an outer body experience. I don't know who this is. So when I got into the room and I laid onto the bed, the nurses did, obviously, because I'm bleeding and they know that my baby is obviously at that risk, or was very, was passing away. They immediately wanted to check the heartbeats of both babies. So I laid on the bed and they put the jelly stuff, they rolled the little machine over, and they heard the heartbeat of DeAndre. So DeAndre had a very nice, healthy heartbeat, and that was fine. I already knew that DeAndre was good. And then they went up and they checked for Dior. So Dior was like at the top of my, like up here, like DeAndre was at my lower, Dior was up here. So they checked up there and they were like, yeah, we have a heartbeat. And I thought, oh, I was like, my baby girl's still here. So I was like, okay, baby girl's defeating all odds right now. Like, God has really got this little girl just killing it right now. So I was really, really happy. I was like, okay, like, all right. So she was still there. Heartbeat was actually really strong. Like, her heartbeat was the same as DeAndre. So I was like, all right then, so why am I bleeding, So obviously that was the nurses. They only there to do the vital checks and to confirm that baby's still actively, alive. And I needed to then see a doctor. So sometimes the doctors can take forever to come. So eventually the doctors came, I explained the situation, and it was like, okay. They asked me if, like, they normally say that when you're bleeding, you should wear a sanitary towel, like a pad, just because they want to see how much blood there is. And I obviously didn't know that. It was my first time actually experiencing, apart from me experiencing bleeding in the very beginning, this was my first time experiencing bleeding so far along. And obviously I didn't know that, like, I didn't have an idea, like, even though I asked the doctor what to expect when I was, while losing a pregnancy, what should I expect? They told me that there wasn't much that I would possibly experience, more than just lack of movement, but then I may not experience it because of the other baby, and then maybe I might get slight bleeding, but so I explained it. They said, okay, that's fine. She then proceeded to do an internal examination. So my ladies out there, if you've ever been pregnant, not only in pregnancy, like, us ladies have to have internal examinations for like cervical cancer screening, all of that. So just imagine if you've never been pregnant but you've had a cervical cancer screening, it's similar. So they put some, they do the little something for my males out there, is a little bit, yeah. So it's very discomfort. Like, it was really, really uncomfortable for me. It wasn't painful, but it was just very uncomfortable. I remember, like, literally, like, oh, like, but yeah. So she did all of that, and then she confirmed that actually, everything was fine. I wasn't going into early labor, like, everything was okay. The reason why I was bleeding, she gave me the scientific term for it, but I can't remember. I really can't remember a lot of these things. But it was simply because, like, it could be like if you're lifting heavy things, or if you're sexually active, which I wasn't sexually active, but maybe around the time I wasn't lifting heavy stuff, but I probably did a bit of walking. So as well, I think as well, walking, like, just too much like pressure or whatever, it can cause some slight bleeding. So she explained that to me, because she said there was something to do with, like, I literally can't remember, but it wasn't nothing to worry about. It wasn't nothing serious to worry about. She gave me the name to go home and actually do my research if I wanted to, just to give me that reassurance that it was okay and it was normal. So that was good. I felt relieved. I was like, okay, my daughter's still around, my baby boy's good, like, and the bleeding is just normal. So we went home, me and my mum went home, we proceeded with life as normal. I'm still trying to hold myself together, like, in terms of my sickness and all of that. But I just want you to understand that obviously during this time, because I was told so often, like, because, I was prepared for my child, for my baby girl to pass away, I was paranoid. Like, every day from the 20-week scan, I was so paranoid to what was going to happen. And even though my daughter was still actively alive and heartbeat was fine, I still knew that there was very much a chance that she was not going to make it. So I just had, it was almost like I had an extra day or a few more hours with her. And I appreciated the hours and the time I had. So um, 2 days later, I then realized that there wasn't much movement. Now, throughout the whole day, I kind of realized that there wasn't much active movement like I used to have. And I remember holding it together. I didn't tell my mom, I didn't tell anybody, I didn't tell my brother, I didn't mention it, especially my mom, because that's who obviously I'm close to and that's who I tell everything. I didn't tell my mom anything. I kind of just went through my day like just kind of like worried, but I didn't want to like keep like I felt like I went to the delivery suite so much with my sickness, my vomiting, that I didn't want to keep going back and forth, back and forth. So I remember trying to hold it together. I'm like, Davina, you know, it's just probably just paranoia. Like, you're okay, the babies are fine. You just went to the hospital 2 days ago, everything was okay. Like, what could possibly happen in 2 days? But then it came to like around 10 o'clock that night, around 10 o'clock in the evening, and I remember just breaking down. I just remember crying, and my mom was like, "Why are you crying?" And I was like, "It's okay, it's nothing, it's just my hormones." And she's like, "No, I know something ain't right. What's the problem?" And then I told her that I wasn't feeling the baby's move. I wasn't feeling any movement, and she was like, "Why didn't you just say something?" Because we would have just gone to the hospital. My mom said they told me that any time I had a concern, it doesn't matter if I'm going there 50 times, 3 times for the day, whenever I have a concern, straight to the hospital, because obviously the quicker you get there, the quicker they can kind of do what they have to do. So my brother ended up dropping us over to A&E. It was about, it's now probably like after 10, or I don't live too far from the hospital. I don't live too far from the hospital. So it never took long. We got to the hospital. Like I said, it was 10 in the evening, going on to now midnight, like 11, then midnight. So we got there, we waited a while, and then obviously I give my blue book in. They told me to do a urine test, because every time you go, you've got to do a urine sample. So I did that, and I waited, and then I was called in to the room, the cubicle, to get an examination. So I told them that, you know, I wasn't feeling the movement as much as I was feeling it like yesterday or the day before, and they were like, okay. So they strapped me up. Like, I'll see if I can find pictures to give you kind of idea, but they strapped me up. I obviously, it's like with some belts. So I had a pink belt, blue belt. Blue belt was to kind of so they strap you up with some belts, which is like some monitors that can tell them about like the movement. And when you're further along in your pregnancy, that will say if you've got if you're having any contractions, the heartbeat of the baby and the movement and stuff like that. So they strap me up with that kind of machine. It's very tight, it's very uncomfortable, and you can't really move, because the way it's so sensitive that if you do a little movement, like everything will just wouldn't pick up what it needs to pick up. And because when you're strapped onto that machine, if it fails, then they have to keep repeating the test. So because I was having twins, it's like I had to have double of those machines on me. So yeah, they strapped me up and everything like that, and they started to monitor the baby. So immediately, babies had a heartbeat. Both babies were still actively there. Heartbeat was still there. Movement was fine. However, I failed the test twice, and that was with the baby girl. So DeAndre was fine. His movement was good. Heartbeat was fine, but Dior failed the test twice, meaning that her heartbeat wasn't as good as what they wanted it to be. The movement wasn't as good as what they wanted to be. And so I'm there now like, oh my God, this is the hour, like this is the time. Like, she's now, obviously she's getting weak. And her movement is obviously decreasing, heartbeat is declining. So this is now is my moment to say my goodbyes to her. And I know like crying is healthy because you get it out. I'm trying not to cry, and yeah, I told you guys, I guess in part 1 and 2, that I'm still very numb to the situation. So I do have my moments where like I just cry, and I have my moments where I don't. I'm just trying to go back in and trying to go back in the moments and trying to reflect. As I'm telling you guys the story, the journey, I'm trying to also reflect on it as well to heal. But yeah, so but at that moment, I remember me and my mom kind of just being like, okay, because I failed the test twice. And I think I kind of inquired, like, what does that mean? And they were like, oh, it's because then, as I said, they weren't happy with the movement and the heartbeat. And so every time, like, I can't leave the hospital until the baby passes that test. So I was like, okay, cool. So they did it about 2 to 3 times, and the baby, the heartbeat wasn't good enough. The movement also wasn't good enough. It wasn't sufficient to what they wanted it. So therefore, the doctors came, and I remember the doctor saying to me that they probably will have to give this one. It's a African female doctor, and I remember her sitting me down and just explaining to me the situation, that they weren't happy with the movement and the heartbeat of the baby, and they tried so many times. Like, different nurses came, strapped me up, nurses went on their break, came back, I was still there. Like, they tried so hard to see maybe if it was the machine, maybe the machine wasn't working properly, but it wasn't that. So the doctor explained to me that they would probably have to give me some steroids, which would kind of like mature the lungs of the baby, because I was very much still, I want to say I was about 27 to 28 weeks around that time, 27, 28 weeks, 29, yeah, 27, 28 weeks. So it was still very early out in my pregnancy, and very early, when I say, like, I still wasn't close to my due date, like, I was far out from it. So they would have to give me these steroids to mature the lungs of both babies, and just in case they had to go in. So I'm like, okay, all right then. Like, I'm just thinking, okay, like, I don't know what to think at this moment. I'm confused, and I don't know, like, I'm just lost at this moment. So she explained that to me, and then she went away. I didn't even see her again. I don't know where she went. I just know she told me that and then just left, and that was it. And then another doctor came on shift, because it was literally like, I was there I remember I told you I got there around 10 about half 10 in the evening, and then it got to 11, and then it got to midnight, and that was probably like 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'm still here. And so the doctor said that I would have to now be admitted onto the ward, because they need to, like, constantly, like, monitor me. Like, it would have to be like a 24-hour kind of monitoring, just because they weren't happy with the movement and the heartbeat of the baby. So I went down to the ward. They transferred me and my mum down to the ward. We were there, and I was all too familiar with this ward, because I was there, because I was sick so many times. I was familiar with the ward and everything like that. So I was down there. We didn't bring any clothes. We didn't do anything, because we weren't expecting, like, I was gonna be, like, staying overnight. So I was there, we waited for hours and hours and hours, until, like, literally they strapped me up on the machines. And I kept asking, like, what's going on, like, because I couldn't feel movement. I was like, is the baby okay? And I was like, the heartbeat's there, it's fine. To them it was fine. The baby was still presently there. So I remember that it was about 10 o'clock in the morning now the next day, and they said I have to go and do, like, an emergency scan, just because they wanted to check if the baby's blood flow was getting any worse, or things were declining because of what they were seeing on the monitor. So bearing in mind that day I also had a 2-week scan with my original doctor. So that now was cancelled, because there was no point, because I was going to do an emergency scan, and the same thing that she was going to kind of look at was what they were going to kind of look at as well. So they wheeled me up to the obstetric department, and I went up there, and I went straight in, and this lady, she not a doctor, it was like an obstetric kind of, I think, a nurse. So she did the scan on me, and she was awfully, like, she was really, really quiet. She never said much. And me and my mum were just like, okay, because she never really interacted with us or said anything. She just did the scan, and then my mum was just like, hey, is everything okay? Like, how's the blood flow? Because now my mum was like a professional. Like, my mum knew all the words, my mum knew what to say, my mum knew what to look out for. So my mum was asking her about the blood flow, because we knew that was declining, and everything, and the weight as well, just to see if baby had gained any weight or anything. So she said that the blood flow was not, it wasn't declining. It hadn't declined, but it also hadn't improved or nothing like that. And to be honest, it would never improve. Like, it's only likely just to go down. And yeah, so the heartbeat was fine. The blood flow was still at not a very high risk level. Like, the baby wasn't getting much blood. and the baby hadn't really put on that much weight from the last two, like from the 2 weeks previous. So they wheeled me back down to the ward, and then another doctor came in to kind of let me know what was happening or what was going on. So this was a whole different doctor, never seen her before. She came and she explained to me the situation, like what they saw in the scan. And I kind of was just like, I get it, because I've heard it so much now. Like, I understand, like, you're just going to repeat the same thing. But she did say to me, unfortunately, the scan does show that the blood flow is not improved, which I didn't, they did kind of tell me it would never like improve. And from what she can see, can you guess what she said? Okay, so she said in the next 2 weeks, the baby's going to die. And I kind of just looked and I was like, yeah, I know, I've heard this already, and I'm very tired of hearing it now. I feel like I'm being punished. I feel like I'm being, someone is kind of trying to torture me by constantly telling me the same thing. I don't need to hear that my child is going to die. Like, I already know, and I'm just trying to process that. I'm trying to, please just, I don't need to hear it all the time. So I didn't say that to her, by the way, because that's not my character, but in my mind I'm just like, can you please just stop telling me this? So yeah, she did say that to me, and then she said to me, well, without me even saying anything, she's like, the baby will not make it, and we wouldn't obviously go in and take the baby out because your other baby's doing so well, and if we were to go in and take him out and take her out, then it's very high risk that baby, your healthy baby, could be born with a disability, or the baby probably wouldn't even make it, then you'll lose 2 babies, and just all the negative stuff that I could possibly hear that morning. And I was like, okay, that's fine. And then she repeated it again, the next 2 weeks, unfortunately, I know it's not really nice to hear and it's really hard to hear, but your baby is not going to make it in the next 2 weeks. And I was like, okay, thank you. And we went home. Me and my mom, we eventually went home. It was probably now like 12, probably 3 in the afternoon, guys. I'm tired, I'm hungry, I want to have a shower. Like, I'm really just over it at this moment. So I went home knowing that my baby was still alive, though. I went home knowing that the baby was still actively alive, moving, and everything was like that. So we went home, and I remember my mum saying, we're not going back. My mum was like, we're not going back to the hospital. If you don't feel the baby move, or you feel like that, then just, that it's probably you're just being paranoid right now, but we're just going to trust God at this moment. We're going to pray about it. That's it. Like, we're not going back unless you're bleeding, unless something drastic is happening. We are not going back to the hospital, because I'm very much so tired and fed up of hearing the same thing every day, every time. We don't need to hear it. If baby girl is going to pass away, let's just have that peace. Do you get me? Like, we don't need to go there and then be traumatized every single time. So I kind of was like, yeah, you know what, I'm not going back. And I remember, like, that night, my mom was actually saying to me, like, you're fine. I remember my mom trying to reassure me, you're okay. But because I was so overwhelmed, she was like, let's just go then, just to give you the peace of mind. But we didn't know what was going to happen. Like, all this whole doctor coming to me telling me baby's going to die. We didn't know it was going to be so drastic. And I think after experiencing that once more, or experiencing it again from a different doctor, I was traumatized at this point. I was already traumatized, but I was deeply traumatized. So I just told myself, like, I'm not even going to go back. Like, I'm not going to go back to the hospital unless I have an appointment, or if something drastically happens, like I'm really literally like gashing out blood, or my water breaks or something like that. So about, I think the week after now, I have a doctor's appointment with one of the doctors at the hospital. And I remember the night before, a few days before, I had a dream. And I had a dream that I was going to meet a doctor, and that doctor was going to give me some hope. So I went to the appointment, and it was an black African doctor that I had the appointment with. And I remember, like, explaining the situation. And at this appointment, they do the scan. They scan you up again. It's not like a proper scan. They just kind of have like a little overview of the baby and the heartbeats and stuff like that, and where the baby's sitting, where both babies are sitting. They check your blood pressure, and you do a urine sample just to make sure your pressure is fine. They check your weight to make sure you're gaining weight and not losing weight, because obviously in pregnancy you want to be like, I know it's like, it's not really fun to be gaining that much weight, but I think in the time of pregnancy pregnancy, you kind of just don't care, because you want to know that your baby's getting enough, nutrition and stuff like that. So they check that to make sure that you're not actually, and especially for me, because I had HG, they just wanted to make sure that I wasn't like losing weight and stuff like that. So I met the doctor. He was and guys, when I said I had that dream, it came to pass. This doctor was he gave me so much hope. I asked so many questions. There was more than one of them in the room, but he was the main doctor. And I remember telling him the situation, and I remember being in that room, and I remember being hopeless as well. I remember just being tired, drained. Guys, if I had pictures of me, you would be like my whole life just was like shambles. Like I'm literally just trying to get my life back together, but I was just defeated, guys. I didn't want to do my hair. I didn't want to put on no pretty clothes. Like, I just was just over it. And I remember him saying to me that, this is the best. Like, as I told you guys, my hospital was Homerton Hospital, and he told me that the NICU at the Homerton was number 3. Like, it was one of the best rated NICUs, and that if I had to deliver the baby, they can save the baby. Like, they have all the equipment to save the baby. Like, you can have your child. Like, they can save a baby less than £1. So I'm thinking, well, I know that because remember my doctor did tell me at the scan that they would want the baby to get to £1 because that's when they'll be able to intervene. But then she told me that they can't do nothing about it because they don't want to affect DeAndre, my baby boy. So he was saying, yeah, like, they could save the baby, like, and then he showed me different graphs, and what he was showing me about the blood flow was that no, like, even though, yeah, the blood flow is not great, that there were other things that they would look out for. And then he showed me on the graph that this part of the baby is fine. So if this part starts to decline, then that's when, like, everything is done. Like, the baby is literally dying. Like, that is it. Like, that's the cutoff point, and they have to go in. So I was like, okay. Oh, okay. So there's some hope. Like, my baby, we can save the baby then, because that part of the baby is intact. Like, my baby girl is intact, but it's just the blood flow is not so great, and the baby is obviously still very small. He did explain to me, I asked him loads, as I said, I asked him loads of questions, and I said to him, well, what if my baby girl does pass away? How would that affect my son? And he was like, it won't affect it won't affect the babies. They won't affect DeAndre because they're in separate sacs, separate placenta, so it wouldn't really affect the baby. And again, they wouldn't really know that until the baby's born. So that was also another reassurance, that it was more likely that the baby wouldn't be affected if, with Dior passing away. And again, a lot of hope that my baby girl could be saved, and that was the best hospital to be at. So I think more that the baby needed to gain to actually be very much qualified to be delivered. So I went home that day feeling so hopeful. I remember as well, as soon as I walked out, I vomited. Like, as soon as I walked out of that appointment, I just vomited. I feel like I think I went into that appointment so overwhelmed and so highly just defeated. And I think when he told me that, I just came out relieved. Like, everything just, like, I just felt like a weight just dropped off my shoulders, and that's when I just vomited. And then we went home. And then for that day, I was just so like, yes, like, this is good. Like, I'm so happy. Thank God for introducing me to this doctor. And I remember him also saying that at my next scan, the doctor would talk to me about possibly having the babies now. So I'm ready now, I'm prepared. I'm like, okay, like, the next 2 weeks when I go into my scan, I'm going to be ready to deliver because they're going to help me. And so around this time, like I said, I don't really like talking much about the person, but around this time, Portland wasn't actively there. To be honest, there was a lot of things happening and a lot of hurtful things happening. So on top of me going through trauma with my baby, losing my child, I also had to deal with the negativity or the things that were being said to me and how I was being treated in that time with Portland. I probably will get into it, not so fully, but I think I'm going to tell you I'm going to repeat some of the things that were said to me, just because I need men to know that when a woman is pregnant, we go through so much. We're actually creating life. we're creating you, like we're creating another human being, and it takes a lot to create a human being. We're creating somebody that has fingers, hands, feet, a heartbeat, mood, like we're creating a whole human being. Our bodies changes, our minds go through so much, our hormones are everywhere, like so many, we're sick, and so many things can happen to our pregnancy. And so therefore, I think around that time, as a man, you need to be extra supportive. Even if you and the person are not in a relationship, you chose to lay down with somebody unprotected. You chose to have intercourse, and pregnancy comes. You're grown enough, you're old enough to know that what can come with unprotected sex. And my Portland is a grown man, like Portland is in his 30s. So Portland is not a child, Portland is not a kid, you know, and he always says that to me, I'm not a kid, I'm not a kid, I'm not a kid. But I mean, actions speak louder than words. So I will probably get into it further into the journey of the things that were said to me, because it's vital in the journey. It's vital into what I'm telling you guys. So like I said, went home, was very, very pleased, had a bit of hope. I wasn't so low and down anymore. And then my 2-week scan came around. So the 2-week scan came around. They told me who my doctor was going to be, but I didn't remember, I don't recall the name of that doctor. But my mom was like, it's probably the man that you saw initially, the first time you had the scan. I was like, nah, I don't think it is him. I don't think it's him. Because of the name, the surname. I was like, no, it's not him. So we got to the scan, we sat down, and then we saw him come in, and we saw him go into the room. My mom was like, it's going to be him. And I was like, oh, please, God. I was like, please, God, let it not be him, because I feel like he's so negative. And I was like, I don't want that man, doing my scan. But lo and behold, it was him. He called my name. I went in. I was like, oh my God. My mom was like, don't worry. When I go in there, I'm going to explain to him not to say these things, not to do that, because it was not my original doctor. So we got into the scan, and first thing my mom was like, hi, yeah, you remember you did her scan the first time and you told her about abortion? Well, please do not tell her about abortion, because that really affected her. She ended up at A&E. She was very depressed, and we don't appreciate abortions, and we don't believe in that. So he was really timid. He was like, oh, I'm really, really sorry. I didn't mean to do that. You know, it's just because I was trying to just, tell you, and my mom was like, yeah, we're not into that. So that was that. I laid on the bed, and now it was super awkward, because I feel like my mom she never said it in a rude way, but I feel like, everything's now on the table, he knows what he done. So I was so awkward. It was so awkward. But I laid on the bed anyway. He did the jelly, he rolled the thing over, and he was trying to be so nice. I felt like he was trying to be really, really nice. So laid on the bed, and he did the scan, and he said to us that, the same thing, baby hasn't gained much weight, blood flow is still not that great, and all of that stuff. So I explained to him, the doctor had told me that possibly I can have the babies early to help make my baby girl survive. Is that an option? When possibly could that when possible can I do how soon can I have the babies, just to save my baby? And he was like, no, he never said that. I don't even want. He was just like, they're not gonna. That's not an option right now, because again, they do not want to affect DeAndre, so that's not an option right now. It's better for us to just keep going every 2 weeks until whatever happens. But we're not gonna give that as an option. So basically, long story short, basically just let my baby die. That's how I felt. Just let the baby die. It just felt like this baby had no chance with these people. They were gonna do nothing. And when you're under a spiritual journey, you do expect to go under these attacks, because the devil, as I said, the enemy is only there to kill, steal, and destroy. So of course the enemy doesn't want my child to be born. So they're not gonna do anything. I remember last time we saw baby's face was 20-week scan. My mom wanted a picture of the baby, because we can never see this baby. Dior would never show her face. She would never show her face. She always was covering her face. So I remember that my mom saying to him, we keep asking the doctors to see the baby's face, but nobody can do it. Can you try, to see if we can see the baby's face, because I just want a picture. So he was like, I'll try. I don't know if it will work, because obviously the baby's never shown her face. And lo and behold, the baby showed her face. And I just want to mention this because he's the one that mentioned abortion, and he's the one that I felt had such negative energy. But my child, like, she wouldn't show her face to nobody but this man. It was almost like, I don't know, it felt like God was saying, "Hi, hello, I'm here." I felt like it was that, but she only showed her face to that man. And I remember even saying, "You must be in love with this man because you just only show him your face." But it was great because we ended up getting a picture of her, and that's what we needed. We needed a picture because we wanted to have something to hold and have a memory of her. So we got that picture and we cherished that picture. We very much cherish it. So yeah. So the 2 week scan happened, guys. I went home again, where the male African doctor had given me hope. I've now gone back into, okay, babies, I'm not gonna get to see my child alive, and I just need to, like, I'm still on that journey of waiting for. It's like a ticking time bomb. I'm just waiting for the day to come when I'm just gonna be told my baby's not here. So that was that, and then around this time now, I have now another 2 week scan coming up, which would be with my original doctor. So around this time is where everything went left. So during this period, I think it was like, now I want to say I am 31 weeks. So around this time, Portland it became very sour. Now I don't want to be like I'm so innocent, I'm perfect, because I'm not. And I will honestly say that I used to go at him, like I used to be so angry at him because my hormones was very, I was like very hormonal. I was going through the whole trauma of losing my child, and just to not have that support from him, it really used to trigger me to just go at him, go at him, go at him, because I just wanted him to understand how I was feeling, and he just wouldn't get it. So around this time, it was now, I want to say the beginning of October, it's my mum's birthday, and my mum celebrated her birthday. My stepdad came, that's Chris, shout out to Fresh Cash Boss. He came, and so now we have family, we're around more family, and I'm starting to, like, get my little groove back. I still wasn't like dressing up or anything like that, but I was starting to feel a little bit better because now it's kind of sunk in that this is what's going to happen, and I'm just trying to mentally like not break completely because I've got to be strong for my son. So my mom's birthday came, we celebrated my mom's birthday, got her gifts, made her feel really special because I wanted to show my mom as much appreciation as I could because she's been holding my hand through the whole journey. So I just wanted to show it wasn't much, but I wanted to show her that I appreciated her and loved her for carrying me through this journey. So that happened, like I mentioned, and then Portland, for the first time, came to my house again with his family member and brought me 2 tins of feeding. Now, bearing in mind that prior to him coming to my house, I had asked him, could you help me to support? I mean, by right, I mean, you are the dad, so you need to support financially, you need to play your part. So I remember asking him, can you buy help me to buy the cot, the buggy, and all of this stuff, because we need to now start like preparing. Even if, with Dior leaving, we still have another child to think about. So can you just support me to buy a cot, buy a pram, buy all of this stuff? Because I hadn't purchased anything at this point because I was so traumatized. I wasn't into it. Like, I wasn't into nothing. I didn't even make a baby wish list registry until like my friend told me to do that and encouraged me. So shout out to my friend Monique. She encouraged me to do a registry. She's like, where's your baby wish list? Because I want to purchase something for the babies. Bearing in mind that all my friends, all these, my family, some of my family members didn't know that I was losing the baby girl. They didn't even know it was a girl, because when I did find out the gender, and I didn't tell anybody because I didn't want nobody to, like, if I told them the gender, I would have had to tell them that the baby was gonna die, just because I didn't want them to purchase anything for her when I knew that she wasn't gonna make it. So whenever they asked me, so what was the gender, I would be like, oh, it's a boy, and I don't know the other baby's gender because the other baby isn't revealing the gender. So right now I'm just buying neutral stuff. So if you're gonna buy anything, buy neutral stuff for the babies. But they didn't know that actually the true story behind why I was holding back the gender. They didn't know anything. So when my friend told me to make this, she didn't know what was happening. Nobody knew what was happening. So everyone was just kind of like, everybody just thought it was because I was really, really sick with HG, why I was not as, you know, like doing much, you know. So I did that. So shout out to all my family and friends that did purchase something for, you know, on the wish list. That meant so much to me. Thank you guys so much, because as I told you, I didn't have a baby shower. I didn't do none of this stuff. So thank you to those people that contributed. I really, really appreciate it. So like I said with Portland, when I mentioned the cart, the buggy and stuff like that, he said to me, I don't have no money. I don't have no money to help with that. Matter of fact, he said it was way too early for me. It was way too early to start purchasing anything. Bearing in mind, I'm like 7 months or somewhere along that line. Like I'm almost 8 months. I'm like, you're meant to start purchasing because anything can happen. And bearing in mind, like I'm very high risk at this point. So I need to start getting stuff now. Like I don't know when I'm going to go super weak and I'm not able to. Bearing in mind, like if, you know, once I find out that my child is no longer here, mentally I'm not going to be here to do anything. So while, you know, I'm still up in spirits, let me get everything now. So he said that he didn't, you know, it was too early, he doesn't have any money. I keep saying bear it in mind, but he works a very good job, and he doesn't have any other kids. This would have been his first kids. Also I have responsibilities as well. I've got bills to pay as well. I have my responsibilities. But regardless of having my responsibilities, I've now, you know, played a role in getting pregnant. So I need to also, my priority is my kids. Your number one priority becomes your children. So I really thought that at his age, he would consider that actually I've got this girl pregnant, and regardless of not being in a relationship with me, it's still your kids. You need to contribute. But he didn't see it that way. He thought that, yeah, he doesn't have to, and he's got no money, he's broke. It was always an excuse with him, like he's either broke or he doesn't have no money or whatever. But bearing in mind, as we get closer into this journey, I am going to reveal some more stuff about Paul, and I wasn't going to, and I'm not into the drama and the mixed up and stuff, but I think just because, as I said, I want to shed light on situations, because I want people to know that being pregnant, going through a traumatic pregnancy, you know, you need to be like, both parties need to do what, like, especially like a man, when you get a female pregnant, you need to be extremely supportive to that woman, you know what I'm saying? And there's certain things that you can't be saying, there's certain things that you can't be doing, and it's not just men, like in general, being pregnant, like I have the most respect for a pregnant woman. The things that a pregnant woman has to endure is crazy. It can take a woman out. It's not something that's easy. And I'm not saying, oh, because we're women, like you should, you know, but no, we are creating life. There's nothing more amazing than that, is creating life. And the amount of work that we have to go through, like the amount of things that we have to go through mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually to create this life is not a joke. And imagine creating 2 lives at that. So with him, it was just very like, what he did and how he played his part throughout this whole journey was very like, I can't believe that was the person that I actually considered to be my partner. Like, I cannot believe this is the person that I got pregnant for, because I've never met someone like, I just yeah, like as I said, I will kind of say 1 or 2 things further down into the journey, so you can kind of understand where I'm coming from, and so that, as I said, that I can say, look, please, men, don't do this. Like, if you do it, do not copy, do not follow Portland, because yeah, it's not right. So yeah, Portland. So with him saying that he doesn't have no money, you know, it's too early to purchase this, it's too early to purchase that. He then came to my house with his family member and only bought me 2 cans of cow and gating feeding. Bearing in mind, I'm like, I don't need a feeding right now. I need like a buggy, I need a cot, I need this. But you know what? I'm gonna appreciate your 2 tins of feeding. I will explain. I don't want to say too much, but he gave me 2 cans of feeding, and yeah, that's all he gave me. And 200, and I think overall he gave me like 200 and something pounds throughout my journey of being pregnant. So yeah, I mean, I appreciate everything, but yeah. Um, so yeah, we get to that stage and we are going through now, and the weeks are coming by. And as I said, during this time now, after I got the 2 tin feeding, I was very highly emotional, guys. I was really, really emotional because it was hitting me, reality was hitting me that I was by myself. Like I had my mom, family, but when I say by myself, you guys know, because I've said it in part 2, that I didn't have that family unit, and it was really playing on me now. And on top of that, I didn't know when to expect my child to pass away. And Paulin was starting to, it was little things that he was saying and the things that he had said in the past that started to kind of like play on my mind. And so I remember now it was, I'll get the exact date, but this particular day, me and him had a conversation, and I decided to contact him because I wanted again to try to see if we could somehow get to a place where we could be adults and mature and do what we have to do for these babies. Even if it's just one baby, we still have to be parents, you know? So I remember calling him. I think he was at work at the time. He answered the phone, and I remember just telling him like, hey, like, this is what I need. This is the support I need. This is what I'm going through. I'm really like, you know, he knew that already as well because he'd been to that one scan. So he knew the pressure that I was under. And I remember him just saying really horrible things, like very, very, I want to say very like heartless things. Like he had no emotion towards the way I was feeling. And I think one of the things that he would say to me is, your problem is not my problem. So being pregnant and telling him that I'm sick, I need to go to hospital, he would always say, that's not my problem. Like, that's your problem. You need to deal with it. And I think as a pregnant woman and being first time pregnant, and if you know me, like you really, really know me, you know that I pride myself so much I pride myself in a lot of things. And one of this was, as I told you guys, is I wanted to have pregnancy, like marriage and all of that. So when I heard him say that, I felt like somebody had just slapped me in the face. I felt like somebody had just punched me. I felt used. I felt abused. And I just felt like, how could somebody, like, I'm pregnant, I'm carrying 2 babies, and this man is gonna say to me like, it's not my problem, that's your problem, you need to deal with it. And you know, he would say things like, you know, don't call me after 10 o'clock. And I'll be like, what do you mean? Like, anything can happen, you know, I could go into labor, I can lose the baby like at 1 o'clock in the morning, or you know, I could be in like, I need to, like, you need to be available, you know. And he'd be like, no, it's my phone, I don't need to answer you, I don't need to pick up the phone to you, and don't call me after 10 o'clock. And I was just like, and that's what I mean by, during this time, I was very, very broken. I felt like, why, I kept asking God, like, why is he like this? Like, why is he acting like that? Like, I know that I've told him off because I was hormonal and I felt like he wasn't getting it. And every time he would say stuff like that to me, I felt like I had to be defensive. And so I felt like when I was defensive, he would use that as a way to say, oh, you were rude, or you did this to me, or you're saying that to me, or you're disrespectful, you know, I don't want to talk to you, we're not in, and one of the things he used to say is, we're not in a relationship, we're not in a relationship. I did break up with you before I found out I was pregnant, so I know I'm not in a relationship with you. I do not want to be in a relationship with you, sir. Mr. Martin, sir, I don't want to be in a relationship with you. Like, I would never want to be in a relationship with you. You are not my type. As in, during my pregnancy, you are definitely not my type. The way you have treated me in my pregnancy, there's no way I could consider you a husband, anything. So I'm here trying to co-parent, trying to, you know, be mature about the situation, and you are being so mean, you know. And it was like, why are you doing that? Why are you, I mean, apart from me being hormonal, I kept asking him, why are you like this? Like, what's the reason? What's the issue? What's going on? Like, what have I done? You know, and the only thing you can say is, I don't need to do anything because we're not in a relationship. We're not in a relationship. And that's all I kept hearing from this man, is we're not in a relationship. And I thought, it doesn't matter. Like, I'm still pregnant. I'm still carrying your child. It's happened now. We just need to be mature. And he used to say things like, I'm not a child, because I used to suggest to him, well, if you can't talk to me, then talk to my mom. If you can't speak to me, speak to my mom then. no, I'm not doing that. I'm not a child. I'm not a child. I used to think, bro, like, what are we gonna do here? Because you don't want to speak to my mom. You don't want to. You're trying to traumatize me by telling me like we're not in a relationship. We're not in a relationship. I don't need to talk to you. And at the same time, you try to make it look like I'm spiteful. So I don't know. Family member that intervened very early out in my pregnancy, and I really respected this family member because I felt like he stepped up and he tried to make things right, and he tried to knock sense into Portland, even though Portland's head is very big and thick. I don't think he could get in there. Not to be rude, I'm not being rude to Portland now, but I have to speak my mind. I'm trying to heal. So he did try, and he did tell us, like, he kept telling me, like, you know, I'm trying, I don't know what to do anymore. Like, he basically felt defeated himself because it was like there's nothing more you can do with a stubborn board, somebody that doesn't want to move. So what more can you actually do? So I remember, like, around this time, the day, it was a Friday or a Thursday, and I remember being very, very highly emotional after the conversation that we had on the phone. A lot more other things were said, but I don't think it's very appropriate for me to speak it on this. But just know that it was it was very, very heartbreaking, and I did cry for that whole day. And I remember my mom saying to me, "Why are you crying? What's going on?" And I tried to hold it back because for me, I don't like making other people look bad. I normally take all the blame. Like, I don't want to say it's me, it's me, it's me, it's me, it's me. So I try not to kind of put the blame on him. And I think throughout my whole pregnancy, I tried to, as much as I would go after him, I don't think he realizes that I really was trying. And I really was trying because I feel like we're both mature adults, and I feel like when I met him, he was a very lovely guy. And I really, even to this day, I'm just kind of like, I know that we had a breakup before I found out I was pregnant, but it really triggered me because that's not the person that I knew. So I feel like hearing him say things and do things, I still try to have hope that, okay, maybe it's this. Maybe because I am on a spiritual journey, like, you know, this is where I've been attacked. And I'm having this hope that every day I had this hope that he would just change and that he would come around and he'd be like, "Hey, Davina, are you okay? Like, how do you feel today? How's the babies? Did the baby move? Did this happen? Like, you know, like, when's your next appointment?" And he come, like, I think every day I just was having that hope that he would just show up and just be good. And I didn't need a relationship from him. Like I mentioned, I didn't want to be with him, but I just wanted a friend. Like, I needed that person to be like, you know what, I did contribute to this, let me be supportive, because she didn't get herself pregnant, I did, so let me support her. And that's not what happened, and I guess I just always had that hope. So I tried to kind of play it off with my mom, and then I remember in the night, it got so bad. I remember busting into the room, and I remember just crying, and my mom was like, "What's wrong?" And I was just crying, and I couldn't stop crying. And I said to my mom, "I can't do this. Like, I know I'm like fully hurt, like I'm fully in my pregnancy now, but I can't do this. Like, I can't do this. I don't think I'm gonna be capable of looking after my kids, and you know, I'm just not, I just can't do it." And I remember her saying, "What's the problem? Like, what happened on the phone call?" Because one thing about my mom, like, I could tell her, I could try cover things up, but she'll know. She can see in my soul. Like, my mom can see me. Like, she was like, "No, what was said on the conversation? What did Portland say?" And I told her what Portland said, and then she was like, "Okay, that's it. I'm calling him." And no, she never said she's calling him. She said she's gonna call the family member, just because she needed to let, like, the family member know what was going on and that it's not acceptable and they need to talk to him. So she did call the family member. The family member was at work, but he did call back later. And I remember my mom kind of telling him, she went on the phone call, and I remember she went on the phone call with him, and I kind of sat in my room. I didn't want to be in there when she was telling him because it was too traumatizing. Anything to do with Portland or stuff, it was too much for me, guys. So when she was in her room and she was on the phone to him, and then she called me and she said, "Come," and she was like, "You know, he wants to speak to you." So Portland's family member spoke to me, and I explained to Portland's family member what was happening and how I felt and what was said to me. And he was like, you know, he's really, really sorry, and he's going to talk to him and see what's going on, because he just doesn't understand what's wrong with him, like why he's doing all of that. So eventually the next day came around and I slept on it. I was still very hurt. I slept on it, and then, as I said, the next day came around. I'll get the specific date, because this very day is where things change for me. So I remember that morning was my 2 week scan now, and I dressed up, got ready. My mum wore pink, I wore pink. And I think it was I feel like I wore pink because I was doing it in support of my daughter. And I knew that at this 2 week scan, I was probably going to hear, I was going to hear that she had gone. Just because of the stress that I went under, guys. I was in so much pain. I was crying every day. And I remember that day as well, the day before when me and Portland had this situation, I cried so hard that I remember holding my stomach. And I'm not exaggerating, because I'm not trying to make nobody look bad. This is just my truth. All respect to Portland, wherever he is. I wish you all the best. All love, respect, whatever. But I remember holding my stomach, and I remember crying and saying to my child, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm so sorry. You're going through so much, and I'm here crying, and I'm putting stress on you. I'm really, really sorry, but I can't help it. And I just kept crying. So I kind of expected that because of that, I was going to hear something really, really bad. So we got to the scan, and I laid on the bed, and it was my original doctor, and she was like, oh my God, you're here. I can't, like, I don't know why, she was so surprised to see me. She was like, you're still pregnant. And I'm like, okay, am I not supposed to be pregnant? So she's like, you're still pregnant. Like, oh my God, I haven't seen you in so long, because obviously, if you retract back, I ended up having that emergency scan because of my bleeding, and because of the movement. So I never got to see her, and I never saw her in the other week because I saw the guy. So it had been like 4 weeks, like, since I've seen her, somewhere like that, 4 weeks. So it was a wow. So she was like, oh my God, we started to talk and everything like that, and we told her that we got to see the face, and she was like, I'm so jealous because she's never seen the face, and no matter how much she tried, she can't see this baby. So I remember laying there, and she did the scan, she started it, and I think she was in the room with another person. No, she was by herself, because sometimes they have someone else in there with them as well doing training and stuff. So she was by herself, and she checked out my baby boy. She's like, he's doing really well. She's like, oh my God, he's so big. She's like, do you know how much he weighs? And I was like, how much? She's like, 4 pounds. She was like, he is so big, and he's so tall. Like, who's tall? And I was like, oh, the dad is really tall, because Portland is really, really tall. So yeah, that was that. And then we came to the part now where she has to check Dior. So she goes onto Dior, and she says, oh my God. Oh my God. She said, oh my God. And she's surprised, because she's not medically alive. And the fact that the baby's alive, she was shocked. And she was like, the baby still hasn't gained much weight, and the baby is alive, but this is really bad now, because the thing that the doctor told me, if it was that particular, I can't remember, but remember I said that the doctor said if this part of the baby starts to not function, then that's it. And she was like, I'm gonna keep it real, this part of the baby is starting to decline. So this baby has been holding on for so long now, and the baby boy has put on so much weight, we are going in. So that day, October the 24th or 5th, I'm going to get the correct date, they decided that I was now going to give birth. They decided that my child held on for so long, and I feel like God said, God said to me, I feel like God said, you've held on for so long, you've gone through so much, and now it's time to go in, now it's time to show you that I'm God. And that's what happened. God decided to turn up. God decided to say, God showed these people that I am God, because that was it. For so long, we've been fighting for this baby to get saved, and finally they have agreed that I'm going to have my babies. And she said to me, are you not scared? You're not worried, you're very calm. And I remember saying, yeah, I'm calm, because in my mind, I felt like God was there with me. I felt like God was present with me. And the night before, when I went through that whole situation with Portland, I felt like God saw my tears. I felt like God felt my pain, and I felt like God was like, no, I'm not gonna watch you keep going down. I'm going to step in, and I'm gonna show you that I'm God. And that is exactly what he did, guys. And I had to, she said to me, we're going to go in, we're going to have this baby, we need to have this baby, we're going to have these babies over the weekend. So it was, I think it was a Friday, it was a Friday. She's like, we're going to have these babies, you're not going home today, you're not going to be going home. Mom's going to have to go and get your bags and you'll be admitted. And that was it. My mom went. But before that, she said I have to have the steroid shots because the babies were still not developed fully in terms of like their lungs and stuff like that. So they would have to give me a steroid shot to help to develop the baby's lungs. And that is what happened. So I got my first injection that very day, in that very hour. Like I got my first injection and then I was escorted off to the ward, and that is where things did take a turn. And I will be back to tell you part 4 of what happened. But every time my life changed, and in this very time my life changed again. And you know, now I know I'm having my kids, but at the same time there is a possibility that my child may not survive. Both of them may die at this point because I'm having them early, and everybody knows that when you have babies, premature babies, it doesn't mean that the babies are going to survive because their lungs have not developed. Like, you know, a lot of things they haven't fully developed. They're not at the birth, you know, their weight is very under. So anything can happen. They could develop a lot of different diseases, a lot of illnesses, like they can die, like anything can happen. So as calm as I was because the power of God was over me, I still knew that they're just trying at this moment in time and anything can happen. And this is why I said my life completely changed. And I will come back in part 4 to tell you what happened. But I am going to leave it here. I always apologize. Sorry if I'm jumbly. I just want to get my story out there because I want somebody, another mom, another dad, a family, you know, families to know that, you know, never give up. And to my men out there, like that's watching this, if you haven't had kids, or, you know, if you are planning to have kids, or you have somebody that's pregnant right now and you are going through, because you know pregnancy is not easy, and we women do get we do get emotional, we do get angry, and we do get upset, and sometimes as men, you know, you guys have emotions too, you guys have feelings, and I know that sometimes you can't deal with that. You're like, no, I can't deal with it. But I just want you to know that the more that your partner, even if you're not together, when that person is pregnant, the more they get sad, just give them love. Just love them. Just be there. Support them. You know, give them love. Just embrace them tighter. The more they get angry, the more you love on them. Because we are carrying humans. We are creating life. And there's nothing more powerful and more amazing than creating life. Like, it's life. So for my men out there, please, if you're doing it right now, please call your pregnant partner and tell them sorry and just go and hug them or buy them ice cream and candy and just love on them, and just know that they don't mean it. Like when they tell you I hate you or leave me alone or you're this, they don't mean it. I promise you they don't mean it. Yeah. And for my ladies out there that are pregnant or planning to get pregnant, or, you know, have gone through tragedy, I just want you to know that you are loved, you're beautiful, you're amazing. Just carrying life, you are amazing. For my women that do want to have babies, just be prepared. Like, there's nothing that you'll never be prepared to have a kid, but just know that, you know, pray over your pregnancy, pray over the future pregnancy. You know, embrace yourself, love yourself, like mentally love yourself first before you enter into that phase of pregnancy. You need to love on yourself. You need to work on your mental space. You need to just all of that. But pray before you get pregnant. Pray, say, God, please, when you know, pray over that pregnancy, pray into it before it happens. And for my women that are pregnant, again, you're beautiful, you're amazing, you are awesome, you are a queen. Like, you are, listen, like, there's nothing more powerful than you creating life. Because trust me, being pregnant showed me I have a different level of respect for moms. I have a different level of respect for my moms out there, because it's not easy. And trust me, not everybody makes it through just because it's not easy. And I just want to say I love you guys so much, and I cannot wait to tell you part 4, part 5. I think this is going to go to part 6, and then that will be it. But you know, for all of you that has been tuned into my journey. I love you guys so much, and you know, I can't wait to hear other people's stories. And that's the whole reason why I'm making this, is because I want to hear other people's stories. I just want to start this whole thing with mummies, and just, you know, us mums and future mums and dads and families that, you know, I just want to, you know, I just want to, I don't know, I want to be filled, like I want to know more, like I want to hear other people's stories, like I want to help somebody else. You know, if somebody's going through something or been through something, I want you guys to know that, like somebody said to a beautiful escaper said to me, you're not alone, Davina. I want to say the same. You're not alone. Whoever you are, you're not alone. You are not alone. I want you to know how great and how powerful God is. And yeah, I'll be back. So I love you guys. See you in the next one. Mwah.